I have to be sincere and honest. Most of our African American cousins who fictitiously identify themselves as ADOS, FBAs, and pretendians, they are extremely negative when it comes to seeking unity of purpose amongst our people. I don't really understand what some of our black folk think, that if they delineate themselves in a society where they are overwhelming minority, it's going to bring them some sort of advantage. It don't work like that. If you are a minority in a particular geographical space, but in the greater geographical space, you are majority. For instance, black folk or melanated people are the majority in population of human beings around the planet. I'll repeat. Black people are majority in population on planet Earth. We just happen to be very decentralized because of colonialism, slavery, and also bad economic circumstances as a result of neocolonialism. So if you, as a black person or black folk, you are trying to delineate yourself and put yourself in that little geographical space that was actually created by your sworn enemies, and think that you're going to be better off living with your sworn enemies away from the greater population of people who look like you, then you are an idiot. Because at the end of the day, look into other races. They have their quarrels internally. The Germans, the French, the English, the Irish, the Scottish, the Russians, they are all Europeans. They have their quarrels. Look at Asia, China, Singapore, Vietnam, Laos. They have their quarrels. But at the end of the day, they stay on court. At the end of the day, if they are fighting for any political and economic interests against another group of people who don't look like them, they come together. It's only black folk that delineate themselves thinking that they're going to be better off with the very people who are subjugating them and stifling their economic, cultural, and political growth. The reason why I'm saying all this is because the overwhelming negative response that I received for the live I did yesterday concerning the Essence, and when I talked about Essence yesterday, Essence Festival, I was actually in support of the fact that because Essence was a creation of African Americans to express their culture, in as much as the owner of Essence is not African American, but they should still show that respect and balance of Essence in a way that African Americans will be center stage at Essence to highlight and have a full cultural expression of what they have built as a people. But nonetheless, a lot of our FBA brothers, because of the enslaved or the slave mentality that they still possess, they are missing the point. When we talk about African Commonwealth or Global African Commonwealth, it simply means respecting African cultures around the world, which is not homogeneous. African American culture, Jamaican culture, Haitian culture, Afro-Braziliano, Afro-Cubano, or Afro-Latino. Even in Africa, we have Igbo culture, we have Yoruba culture, we have Bayangi culture, we have Zulu culture, we have Kikuyu culture, we have Lua culture, we have Kenya, Rwanda, there are so many cultures that make up black cultures around the world. So Commonwealth is building a platform where we embrace the diversities of our culture, including the new black cultures that were created out of the struggles of our enslaved African ancestors, for instance, African Americans. Respect those cultures, give them space to practice their culture, but at the end of the day, we should be building a commonwealth where we utilize the power of our diverse cultures to build a sustainable economic and political future for all of us, just like the Europeans have done. The Germans sometimes don't like the French. We know all the wars that happened there. First World War, Second World War, you know, the Franco-Prussian War and all those wars that happened in Europe. But at the end of the day, the Europeans they always find a way to work together to consolidate their global economic and political power. So if you are an FBA, I don't have any problem with that. If you are ADOS, I don't have any problem with that. We shouldn't have any problem with that. But we should have a problem when you think that with your little minority population, you can overcome and benefit in a space where it's controlled completely and dominantly by the very people who enslave and colonize us. That is what makes this whole argument about delineation as FBAs stupid. It's extremely stupid. You come together, express yourself in your cultures, respect the various cultures within your race, but you fight for a common socio-economic and political power using the combined culture and the combined population of your people, of which we as black people, we have the largest population in the world. You got it? This is what is happening. So, if you are an FBA, how many FBAs are in America? Because I have a lot of African American family and friends. The overwhelming majority of African Americans, they don't identify as FBAs. They identify as African Americans and fully recognize that they are descendants of our formerly enslaved African ancestors. If you count the number of African Americans who identify as pretenders of FBA within America, it's not even going to be up to 1 million. And how do you expect to have any political power, any economic power, when you are absolute minority amongst other groups that don't delineate themselves and they are fighting for a common political and common economic goal? What you're rendering yourself to, you're going to become a useful political and useful economic idiot, delineating yourself from the larger population and try to create some type of fictitious identity that the rest of the world is looking at you as a laughing stock. You feel me? This is what is going on. So I will go back to somebody sent a request. No. So I will go back to the Essence. Let me stay on topic here. Essence Festival. I agree with the sentiment of my African American brothers and sisters that the overly Africanization of Essence is cultural appropriation. I agree with that statement, but with a caveat. These FBAs or these ADOS or whoever what do you call yourself, pretending or whatever, that you are shouting cultural misappropriation of essence. Have you ever asked yourself this question? Why is it that most of the cultural institutions that African Americans have invented, built, and they become successful, Have you asked yourself why is it that African Americans, these African American institutions, they end up getting sold to the highest bidder? A good example is BET, Bob Johnson. African Americans who create these institutions like Essence or like BET or like, why is it that they keep selling their institutions, their cultural institutions to the highest bidder? The problem is not Africans or Caribbeans culturally appropriating African American culture. The problem is the African American business people who create these African American cultural institutions and end up selling them because they don't give a 1-2 fucks about the African American community. All they care about is their bank account. Rich African Americans care only about their bank account. They don't care about the larger population of African Americans when we talk about commonwealth. That is the whole idea about commonwealth. So, Essence was started by African Americans. And it was widely successful. It started as a magazine. But the African Americans who started Essence, they sold it to Time magazine. They sold it to the YT people. You feel me? So instead of attacking the cultural appropriation of Essence, you should be attacking the African Americans who started Essence, who sold it to the YT people. Then when they sold this Essence to the YT people, Essence Corp, an African brother from Liberia, an African brother, immigrant, who have a lot of more, went and bought it back from the YT people. Right? And now, African Americans or FBAs are crying cultural appropriation of Essence. But they forget that when somebody buys something in a capitalist society, they can do as they please with it. When someone buys a company, a corporation, a store, a restaurant, when someone buys a business, they can do as they please with it because they own the business. So, the question should be, why are the rich African Americans who start this institution, why are they so quick to sell these institutions away after they have succeeded? So African Americans, the ones who have succeeded building these institutions, they were not building the institution to strengthen the African American culture. They were building the institutions so the institution can grow in value, so they can sell it and put $1 billion or $2 billion in their account and they become a billionaire. To heck with the rest of the African American population, because there's a saying within the African American community, I got mine, go get yours. So, my FBA brothers and sisters are barking at the wrong tree. You all are barking at the wrong tree. You all are attacking the African ownership of Essence instead of attacking the African Americans who created Essence and sold it to the YT people before the black brother from Africa bought Essence back from the YT people. But I'm reasonable. That's why I say, in as much as Essence is owned by an African brother, Essence, that the African brother should appropriate Essence to foster the African American cultural expression, because that was the initial foundation of Essence when it was created by African American women, by the 5 or 4 African American women before they sold it to the YT people. So I don't like the fact that it's been Africanized completely the way it happened. That is why I'm calling on the African brother who own Essence and the sister, the director of Essence, who is Kenyan, for them to reappropriate Essence to become a full expression of the African American experience and African American history. Because African American culture is black culture. African American culture is new African culture that was birthed out of the struggle of our formerly enslaved African ancestors. So we should recognize African American culture as a new African culture. Just like you have Irish Americans, or German Americans, or British Americans. They still celebrate their stuff here. 1st of October, they still celebrate 1st of October here. German Americans still celebrate 1st of October. So we as Africans, we should collaborate with our African American brothers to celebrate a full expression of the African American culture instead of appropriating it or trying to Africanize it. We are diluting our own global power. But I just wanted to say to all the haters of this brother who own Essence, direct your anger to the African American inventors or creators of Essence who sold Essence to the YT people before the African brother went and bought Essence from the YT people back. So find a way to work with the Africans who own Essence rather than hating on them, rather than pointing finger on them, when you should be directing your anger towards the African Americans who invented Essence in the first place, who decided to sell it to the highest bidder. That's where the problem is. Most African American institutions have been sold. They sell them. They create them, it gets value, and they sell it. African Americans are not building a community. That is why even with $1 trillion in GDP, we are the largest consumers in America as black folk because we don't build community. Whatever we create, we sell to YT people for billions. So we are not building communities of anything. A brother starts a restaurant. It makes a lot of money, he sells it to a Mexican. An African-American brother starts a clothing line. It makes a lot of money, they sell it to YT people. An African sister starts a hair care product, it becomes $1 billion company, they sell it. So, African Americans, our cousins, are very smart, very innovative. They create stuff that changes, they create stuff. But the problem is, African Americans who create, they don't keep, they sell. Because they don't have that spirit of commonwealth. You see, Jewish people create stuff and they keep it. It goes for generations and generations and generations and generations. Same with Europeans, same with Asians, same with Spanish. African, you can go to Washington, D.C., you can go to Baltimore, you can go to Chicago, you can go to Overtown in Miami. You won't find one soul food restaurant anymore. Because as soon as the original owners of the soul food restaurants, they get old, what happened? They sell the restaurant. Or their kids take over and they sell it. Look at most of the houses in D.C. and Baltimore, in Harlem, Brooklyn. They don't keep nothing. As soon as the parents or the grandparents die, they sell the houses and move to a YT neighborhood. So, this anger that is being directed to the Caribbean or the African immigrants, that is misfiring. That is total misfiring. Our African American cousins should develop the spirit of commonwealth. When you create something that is successful, don't sell it. Don't sell it. Pass it on. Pass it on. Like, I was having a talk with a group of African American men on One Life. And one of them made a statement that all the Africans sold us into slavery. That is the highest level of stupidity. The highest level of stupidity, given that Africans in the continent at that point, yes, some African tribes were involved in slavery transactions with white people from Europe. But most of those very Africans who went to sell their fellow Africans, a lot of them got at gunpoint at the boat and they themselves were enslaved. So you wonder, why can't we think critically that in an African-American neighborhood, you have some brothers who are snitches. You have some brothers who will sell their own brothers for $1. You have some brothers who will snitch on their entire friends for $1. So don't you think that that particular brother who is African-American, who is a big snitcher, would have been one of those type of Africans back in the day, the DNA, who were selling their own brothers? So the very people who sold their brothers into slavery in Africa, they are in America. They are in America. That is why you see a lot of brothers be snitching. They don't keep nothing. They are here. They are everywhere. They are in Africa and they are in America. They are in the Caribbean as well. So a snitching African-American brother, their DNA is linked to that snitching African brother who was selling their own people into slavery. So all of us are involved. It was not the Africans in the continent now who sold African Americans, but it was Africans who participated in that slave trade with Europeans. Some of them ended up becoming slaves in America and the Caribbean. So you don't have to look further. You don't have to look 13,000 kilometers away in Africa to find who sold you. They are among you all in America and the Caribbean. They are there. They are amongst you all. You don't have to look too far. So it's a misguided and stupid argument about who sold who. When the very people who sold some of their own brothers and sisters ended up in the slave ship as well. And they are living with you in the Bronx. Their descendants are living with you in the Bronx. Their descendants are living with you in Harlem. Their descendants are living with you in Southeast DC. Their descendants are living with you in Overtown, in Southside Chicago. That is why you have brothers in America and in the Caribbean who are snitches, who will sell their own brothers for a penny. Just like you will find those kind of brothers also in Africa. Let's not get it twisted. So, basically, I just wanted to bring this point out. I'm going to leave you all. Stop pointing the finger at the African owners of Essence. Point the finger of anger to the African Americans who created Essence and sold it to the white people before the African immigrant came and bought Essence from the white people. Point the finger to Bob Johnson who created BET and sold it to the white people. Most of the institutions that were created by African Americans that succeeded, they sold it to white people. Instead of keeping it to build a stronger commonwealth for every single African American, they choose to sell it so they can become billionaires and live in their big mansions in Malibu, California. They don't care about the rest of the African Americans, the 99% at the bottom of the economic ladder. That is why we, the small people in Africa, the Caribbean, and in America, we should come together and realize that the billionaires amongst us as black people will not save us. We have to come together in unity of purpose to build a commonwealth for ourselves. Black billionaires are the most greedy, self-centered, selfish individuals in the world. Black billionaires are the most selfish, self-centered individuals in the world because they are protecting their wealth, and their wealth benefit mostly other race of people. Black billionaires, their wealth only supports and create wealth for non-black people. So we, instead of delineating ourselves and calling ourselves FBAs and all this, we have to find a way to build commonwealth. Commonwealth, African Commonwealth, global African Commonwealth doesn't necessarily mean forget about your culture as an African American. You keep your culture because that culture is a beautiful culture. African American culture is a beautiful culture. Igbo culture is a beautiful culture. Yoruba culture is a beautiful culture. Zulu culture is a beautiful culture. Jamaican culture, Haitian culture, Afro-Braziliano is beautiful culture. I am talking about Commonwealth, where we use our human and natural resources to build a solid economic and political framework for all of us to benefit out of it, like how other people are doing in Asia and in Europe. But some stupid black folk will come here, instead of talking about Commonwealth that I'm talking about, they're going to be talking about some stupid pretendian or FBA or ADO stuff. We always get off topic. Black folk always get off topic. The reason is because self-hate. Self-hate. We're talking about Commonwealth. They are talking about identity. It's a disconnect. Big disconnect. When you're talking about Commonwealth, identity don't have to come in. Commonwealth for the race, not for identity. Commonwealth for the race, for the black race, not identity. Black people have more than 10,000 identities. Only in Africa, there is more than 6,000 different identities. Igbos, Yoruba, Ashanti, Kikuyu, Zulu, Oromo. Commonwealth is not about identity. Commonwealth is the benefit of the entire race. So if you think that FBA is not a race, FBA, I agree. I will call African Americans foundational African Americans. But remember that FBA is an identity. It's not a race. That is why the rest of the world is laughing at black people. FBA is an identity. Foundational Black American is an identity, if you want to call yourself that. It's not a race. You are still black and descendants of African enslaved African people. Your race is African. Your identity is American or FBA or ADOS, whatever you want to call it. And when we are talking about Commonwealth, is to utilize our complete human and natural resources to build an economic engine that will benefit our race, not our identity. And any African American or Jamaican, whoever, diaspora, if you say you are not African, fine. Stay out of the Commonwealth. African gold doesn't belong to you. African oil, African human resources, African nickel, African cobalt, but you are benefiting from it because white people are exploiting those things to build the cars that you're driving in America. You haven't created nothing. You are only consuming. And you are using your identity to delineate yourself. If you want to delineate yourself, it's good. Nobody is begging you to be within the race. Nobody is begging you. Nobody. There is 1.5 billion black people in Africa. There is almost 500 million black people in the Caribbean, Central and South America, and in North America. We don't give 1-2 fucks if you don't want to be an African or a black person. Nobody cares. We don't care. We have almost 2 billion black people, 2.5 billion Africans around the world. Who give 1-2 fucks if you say you don't want to be African? Who cares? What do you own? What can you really show that you own? Do you have any representative at the United Nations? Do you have anybody at the United Nations or at any international organization that's representing your interests with your little fake identity? Do any international organization recognize you as an economic power? Look at a 38 years old in Africa, Captain Ibrahim Traore. He is the president of an entire country. How many FBAs can be a president in an entire country? No single one. So you all are just idiotic. You can call yourself that, FBA. But remember, FBA is not a fucking race. It's an identity that you created out of the struggles of our formerly enslaved African ancestors. Don't get it twisted. Somebody have to start pushing back on this stupidity. It's absolute idiocy. FBA is not a race. It's an identity that a few black people are trying to create out of the struggles of our formerly enslaved African ancestors.